Today we will talk about regional economic integration. This chapter delves into the arguments supporting regional economic integration through trading blocs like the EU and NAFTA, aiming to eliminate barriers to the free flow of goods, services, and production factors among member countries. The EU, for instance, has created a single market, facilitating labor movement and reducing prices for consumers, but also posing challenges for local workers. The WTO oversees these regional trade agreements, with over 500 currently in effect. International trade theories, including comparative advantage, suggest that such agreements benefit all members by promoting freer trade. Europe, especially, has seen success with the EU's single market and the introduction of the euro, fostering a closer political and economic union. Similarly, NAFTA aims to remove trade barriers between Canada, Mexico, and the US, despite some job losses in certain sectors. Regional integration efforts extend beyond Europe and North America, with initiatives like Mercosur in South America and similar movements in Central America, Southeast Asia, and Africa. While regional economic integration is generally viewed positively, concerns exist about blocs competing with each other, potentially leading to protectionist measures and hindering global free trade. Levels of economic integration. Several levels of economic integration are possible in theory, from least to most integrated: free trade area, customs union, common market, economic union, political union. We will discuss these levels in some detail in the next slides. A free trade area eliminates all barriers to the trade of goods and services among member countries, disallowing tariffs, quotas, subsidies, or other trade-distorting measures. Each member country, however, maintains control over its trade policies with non-member nations, resulting in potentially varying tariffs for outside goods. Free trade agreements are the most common type of regional economic integration, making up nearly 90% of regional trade agreements. The European Free Trade Association, EFTA, established in 1960, is the world's longest-standing free trade area. It now comprises Norway, Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Switzerland, down from its original 7 members. Many original EFTA members, including Austria, Finland, and Sweden, joined the EU by 1996. EFTA focuses on free trade in industrial goods, excluding agriculture, and allows members to independently set protections for non-member imports. A customs union represents a deeper level of economic integration than a free trade area by removing trade barriers among member countries and adopting a shared external trade policy. This unified external policy requires administrative systems to manage relations with non-members. Countries that form customs unions often aim for further economic integration in the future. The EU itself began as a customs union and has since evolved into a more integrated economic and political entity. An example of a current customs union is the Andean Community, which includes Bolivia, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. This union enables free trade between its members and applies a common external tariff ranging from 5% to 20% on imports from non-member countries. A common market represents a higher level of economic integration than a customs union. It eliminates trade barriers among member countries, enforces a common external trade policy, and allows the free movement of factors of production, such as labor and capital, without restrictions on immigration, emigration, or cross-border capital flows. Establishing a common market requires significant coordination in fiscal, monetary, and employment policies, which can be challenging to achieve. The European Union once operated as a common market, but has since advanced to greater integration. Mercosur, which includes Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay, and Venezuela, aspires to become a common market in the future. An economic union represents a more advanced level of integration than a common market. It includes the free movement of goods, services, and production factors among member countries, a common external trade policy, and further requires a common currency, standardized tax rates, and unified monetary and fiscal policies. Achieving an economic union requires a robust coordinating bureaucracy and involves ceding significant national sovereignty to that entity. The European Union, EU, functions as an economic union, though not a perfect one. Not all member states have adopted the euro. Tax rates and regulations vary across countries, and some sectors, like energy, are not fully deregulated. Moving toward an economic union raises concerns about how to make such bureaucracies accountable to citizens, which leads to the concept of a political union. A political union centralizes economic, social, and foreign policy decisions within a governing body. The EU is progressing toward a partial political union, exemplified by the European Parliament, elected by EU citizens, and the Council of Ministers, comprising ministers from each member state. The United States offers an example of full political union, where independent states have combined into one nation, a model the EU may move toward in the future. The case for regional integration is supported by both economic and political arguments, but is often met with domestic resistance, leading to contentious and slow progress. Economically, regional integration allows countries to leverage international trade theories that advocate for unrestricted free trade. This leads to specialization in goods and services that a country can produce most efficiently, boosting world production and fostering economic growth. Additionally, opening up to foreign direct investment, FDI, helps transfer critical technological and managerial expertise, stimulating further growth. Overall, economic theories view free trade and investment as a positive sum game, benefiting all participants. While the ideal is to have no barriers to trade and investment among nations, government intervention remains prevalent, with countries often supporting protectionist measures. Efforts by institutions like the WTO to promote free trade globally have met with partial success due to differing national interests and ideologies. Regional economic integration is seen as a practical step to achieve the benefits of free trade and investment beyond what international agreements like the WTO can offer. Agreements between neighboring countries are easier to negotiate and manage than global ones, as fewer perspectives need to be reconciled. This motivation underpins efforts toward regional integration, aiming to maximize the economic benefits of reduced trade barriers and increased investment flows within a more manageable context. The political rationale for regional economic integration has been significant in efforts to establish free trade areas and customs unions. By linking neighboring economies, countries foster political cooperation and reduce the likelihood of conflict. This concept was central to the 1957 establishment of the European Community, EC, which aimed to prevent further wars in Europe following the devastation of two world wars. The founders believed that post-World War II European nation-states were too small to compete effectively in global markets and politics, especially against the U.S. and the Soviet Union. A common sentiment among them was that the threat posed by Stalin's Soviet policies incentivized Western European nations to unite and cooperate economically and politically. Economic and political arguments support regional integration, but achieving and sustaining it is challenging due to two main reasons. First, while economic integration benefits the majority, it also imposes costs on specific groups. For instance, the 1994 establishment of NAFTA led to job losses in low-skill industries in Canada and the U.S. as production moved to Mexico. Such disruptions fuel opposition from affected groups who resist further expansion of the agreement. Second, concerns about national sovereignty hinder integration. Economic integration often requires countries to relinquish some control over policies like monetary, fiscal, and trade policies. For example, Mexico secured an exemption for its oil industry under NAFTA to maintain sovereignty. In the EU, the adoption of a common currency, the euro, managed by a central EU bank, has faced resistance. The UK, driven by concerns over losing control of its monetary policy to the EU, opted out of the common currency and, as of 2011, had not reversed that decision. While regional free trade agreements have gained momentum, some economists caution against overselling the benefits of integration while overlooking the associated costs. They emphasize that the success of regional integration hinges on trade creation versus trade diversion. Trade creation occurs when high-cost domestic producers are replaced by lower-cost producers within the free trade area, while trade diversion happens when lower-cost external suppliers are replaced by higher-cost suppliers within the area. For regional integration to benefit the global economy, the increase in trade within the area must exceed any decrease in trade with the rest of the world. The World Trade Organization, WTO, rules are designed to prevent trade diversion within free trade agreements by ensuring that tariffs are not more restrictive to outsiders than prior agreements. However, the absence of coverage for certain non-tariff barriers leaves room for regional blocs to protect their markets with high barriers, potentially leading to trade diversion outweighing trade creation. To mitigate this risk, expanding the WTO's scope to address non-tariff barriers is suggested, although this prospect remains uncertain. Consequently, there is a lingering concern that regional economic integration could inadvertently result in trade diversion. The European Union, EU, and the European Free Trade Association, EFTA, are the two main trade blocs in Europe, with the EU being significantly more influential due to its larger membership, 28 countries compared to EFTA's 4. And its substantial economic and political impact globally. Many now view the EU as a burgeoning economic and political powerhouse akin to the United States, making it a focal point of attention. The EU's origins can be traced back to the aftermath of World War II and the European nations' aspirations for lasting peace and a strong presence on the global stage. The European Coal and Steel Community, established in 1951, marked the precursor to the EU, aiming to facilitate trade in coal, iron, steel, and scrap metal among member countries. The Treaty of Rome in 1957 formalized the European Community, which later evolved into the European Union under the Maastricht Treaty in 1993. The Treaty of Rome laid out the EU's objectives, including the removal of internal trade barriers, establishment of a common external tariff, and the free movement of factors of production within member states. Over the years, the EU expanded its membership, with countries like Greece, Spain, Portugal, Austria, Finland, Sweden, and others joining, leading to a total of 27 member states by 2007, with nearly 500 million people and a GDP surpassing 12 trillion euros, exceeding that of the United States. The EU has transformed into a formidable global power through these enlargements. The economic policies of the EU are shaped by a complex political structure consisting of four main institutions: the European Commission, the Council of the European Union, the European Parliament, and the Court of Justice. European Commission, responsible for proposing EU legislation, ensuring compliance with EU laws by member states, and implementing these laws. It has 27 commissioners, one from each member state, who are appointed for 5-year terms. The Commission has a monopoly on proposing EU legislation, which then goes to the Council of the EU and the European Parliament for approval. European Council represents the interests of member states and is the ultimate authority within the EU. It is composed of one representative from each member state, with varying memberships based on the topic discussed. The Council must agree for EU law to be enacted, with decisions previously requiring unanimous agreement before the Single European Act introduced majority voting rules on certain issues. European Parliament, with 751 members, directly elected by member state populations. It is primarily consultative and debates legislation proposed by the Commission. The Parliament can propose amendments, although its power has been increasing gradually. The Parliament now has the right to vote on commissioner appointments and veto specific laws. Court of Justice acts as the Supreme Appeals Court for EU law, consisting of one judge from each country. Judges are independent officials, not national representatives. The court can address issues where member states fail to meet treaty obligations or when entities do not act in accordance with EU treaties. The power dynamics between the Council and the Parliament have been a subject of debate in Europe, with the Treaty of Lisbon signed in 2007 aiming to increase the Parliament's authority. The treaty also introduced a President of the European Council and maintained the Commission at 27 members with a rotation system. The Single European Act was introduced in response to frustration over the European Community's (EC) failure to achieve its goals of free trade and investment flow and standardizing business practices by the early 1980s. Prominent business leaders pushed for economic integration, leading to the Delors Commission's proposal to eliminate barriers to a single market by December 31, 1992. The Act became EC law in 1987 after being ratified by member parliaments. Objectives of the Act included removing border controls between member countries to reduce delays and bureaucratic costs, implementing mutual recognition of product standards provided health and safety requirements were met, opening public procurement to foreign suppliers to enhance competition and lower costs, lifting barriers in retail banking and insurance to decrease financial service costs, abolishing restrictions on foreign exchange transactions and cabotage rights of foreign truckers. These measures aim to reduce business costs and allow firms to exploit economies of scale, Increased competition from removing internal barriers was expected to improve efficiency among EC firms. The significance of the Act led to the renaming of the EC to the European Union, symbolizing its deeper integration. The Single European Act significantly influenced the EU economy by driving industrial restructuring and encouraging firms to adopt pan-European production and distribution systems to achieve scale economies and compete effectively. This contributed to faster economic growth. However, 2 decades after the establishment of the single market, it has not fully met its ideal. Concerns about labor mobility, migration, and competition persist, as do challenges in areas like financial services integration. Progress has been uneven due to enduring legal, cultural, and language differences among member states, hindering full implementation of the single market. The Maastricht Treaty, signed in February 1992, committed EC members to adopting a common currency, the euro, by January 1, 1999. The euro is currently used by 17 of the 27 EU member states, collectively known as the Eurozone, encompassing 330 million people, including Germany and France. The newer EU members from 2004 and 2007 must meet specific economic criteria: price stability, sound fiscal health, stable exchange rates, and long-term interest rate convergence to adopt the euro, as the initial members did. The euro's establishment, requiring nations to abandon their currencies and monetary policy control, represents a significant political achievement reflecting the EU's commitment to integration. The euro is now the world's second most traded currency after the U.S. dollar and may rival it in the future. Great Britain, Denmark, and Sweden chose not to adopt the euro. The euro was officially launched in 1999, with physical notes and coins issued in 2002, after which national currencies were phased out. The establishment of the euro aimed to deliver significant benefits to the European Union, including cost savings through the elimination of currency exchange fees, which are estimated to save about $80 billion annually. A common currency also facilitates easier price comparisons across countries, fostering increased competition and driving down prices for consumers. Furthermore, the euro enhances economic efficiency by compelling producers to reduce costs and supports the development of a more liquid pan-European capital market, improving investment opportunities for both individuals and businesses. However, the adoption of the euro entails notable drawbacks. Member states have surrendered control over their monetary policies to the European Central Bank, ECB, raising concerns about national sovereignty and the ECB's independence in managing inflation. Additionally, the Eurozone is not an optimal currency area, as member economies are diverse in structure and performance, complicating macroeconomic policy. Critics argue that without political union, the euro may lead to economic disparities, lower growth, and increased inflation, as the lack of fiscal transfers could exacerbate unemployment and regional imbalances within the Eurozone. The euro, established on January 1, 1999, has had a volatile trading history against the U.S. dollar. Initially, it started at €1 equal $1.17, but fell to a low of €1 equal 83 cents in October 2000 due to investors moving money from Europe to the U.S. for investments. By late 2001, the euro began to rise as the dollar weakened, reaching a high of €1 equal $1.54 in 2008. This rise was partly due to investors pulling money out of the U.S. and buying euro-denominated assets. The euro's value increased further, becoming a significant portion of global reserves by 2004. The euro appreciated against the dollar from 2005 to early 2008, but has since weakened due to economic concerns in EU member states like Greece, Portugal, and Spain. The stronger euro, while a point of pride for Europeans, poses challenges for Eurozone exporters trying to sell goods abroad. The European Union faced a significant challenge with the enlargement into Eastern Europe following the collapse of communism. By the end of the 1990s, 13 countries had applied for EU membership, having to meet various criteria such as privatization, market deregulation, democratic governance, and human rights protection. In 2004, 10 countries were accepted, including Baltic countries, the Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, Malta, and Cyprus, expanding the EU to 25 states and 450 million people. Bulgaria and Romania joined in 2007, bringing the total to 27 nations. However, these new members couldn't adopt the euro until 2007 or later, and free labor movement was restricted. The inclusion of Eastern European nations would have limited immediate economic impact due to their smaller economies. Turkey, a long-standing applicant, faced hurdles due to human rights concerns and cultural differences, delaying its potential EU membership until at least 2013. The expansion raised challenges in EU decision-making processes and budget negotiations, with Turkey's status remaining uncertain. The European Union, EU, stands out as a significant model for regional economic integration, but similar efforts are emerging in the Americas, notably through the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA. In addition to NAFTA, other trade blocs like the Andean Community and Mercosur are developing, and there are stalled negotiations for a free trade area of the Americas, EFTA. NAFTA, initiated by the United States, Canada, and Mexico, took effect on January 1, 1994, after negotiations began in 1991. The agreement aimed to eliminate tariffs on 99% of goods traded among the three countries by 2004, and to facilitate the cross-border flow of services, especially in financial sectors. It also included protections for intellectual property rights and foreign direct investment, with specific provisions for industries such as energy and rail in Mexico, and cultural protections in Canada. Additionally, NAFTA established environmental standards and created 2 commissions to enforce compliance with health, safety, and labor laws, imposing fines and penalties for violations. Proponents of NAFTA argued that it should be seen as an opportunity to create a larger, more efficient production base for the region. They acknowledged that some U.S. and Canadian firms would relocate production to Mexico to leverage its lower labor costs, which in 2004 were 1/10 of those in the U.S. and Canada. Such shifts were expected mainly in low-skilled, labor-intensive manufacturing, where Mexico held a comparative advantage. This movement was seen as beneficial. Mexico would gain inward investment and jobs, while increased Mexican incomes would boost demand for U.S. and Canadian goods, offsetting job losses. U.S. and Canadian consumers would enjoy lower prices, and firms moving production to Mexico would improve their competitiveness against Asian and European rivals. Opponents of NAFTA raise concerns about a potential job exodus to Mexico due to lower wages and less stringent regulations. Figures like Ross Perot predicted massive U.S. job losses post-NAFTA, a claim largely dismissed by economists as exaggerated. Realistic estimates varied, suggesting job gains or losses in the U.S. and Mexico, with the net effects expected to be relatively modest given the disparity in economic sizes between the countries. Mexico faced challenges adapting to increased competition from U.S. and Canadian firms, potentially leading to short-term economic pains but long-term efficiency gains. Environmentalists warned about potential degradation of environmental standards, citing pollution in the Rio Grande and Mexico City. In Mexico, concerns over loss of sovereignty and fears of becoming a mere assembly hub for U.S. firms also fueled opposition to NAFTA. Studies on NAFTA's impact suggest that its overall effects have been modest but positive, leading to significant trade growth among the three member nations. Despite concerns about job losses, the employment effects were minimal, with estimates indicating a small impact on the U.S. economy. NAFTA's most notable impact may have been political, contributing to increased stability in Mexico post-agreement. However, recent challenges, such as escalating drug cartel violence, have raised uncertainties about Mexico's future. The issue of enlargement remains a topic of discussion, with other Latin American countries expressing interest in joining NAFTA, although progress has been slow due to political hurdles. Bilateral trade agreements, like the one with Chile, have been signed as steps towards broader economic integration in the region. Numerous attempts at regional economic integration have occurred in Asia and Africa, but few have made substantial progress, with the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, being a notable exception. Established in 1967, ASEAN includes 10 member countries and aims to foster freer trade and cooperation in industrial policies among its members, collectively representing 500 million people and a GDP of approximately $740 billion. While progress has been limited, only 5% of intra-ASEAN trade involved goods with reduced tariffs. Recent developments like the ASEAN Free Trade Area, AFTA, have begun to cut tariffs on many products. However, some countries, like Malaysia and the Philippines, have resisted fully implementing these reductions to protect local industries. In addition to ASEAN, the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation (APEC) Forum, founded in 1990, includes 21 member states, such as the U.S., Japan, and China, which together account for a significant portion of global trade and GDP. APEC aims to enhance multilateral cooperation amid the growing interdependence of Pacific nations. Despite initial enthusiasm and commitments to reducing trade barriers, APEC has struggled to produce concrete outcomes and has faced criticism for its vague commitments. While there have been some endorsements of trade barrier removal in specific sectors, tangible progress remains limited, leading to concerns about APEC's relevance as a serious economic forum. However, if APEC successfully evolves into a free trade area, it could become the largest of its kind in the world. Our last slide is regional trade blocs in Africa. African countries have been experimenting with regional trade blocs for over 50 years, resulting in 9 different groups, with many nations holding membership in multiple blocs. Despite these efforts, meaningful progress has been slow due to political instability and skepticism about free trade. rooted in fears that less developed economies need tariff protections against foreign competition. A significant move toward re-energizing trade in Africa occurred in 2001, when Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania relaunched the East African Community, EAC, which had collapsed 24 years earlier. This new attempt aimed to create a customs union, regional court, legislative assembly, and eventually a political federation, alongside cooperation in areas like immigration and infrastructure. However, despite initial enthusiasm, practical advancements toward free trade were limited due to concerns over economic imbalances, particularly from Tanzania and Uganda regarding Kenyan competition. The EAC managed to implement a customs union in 2005, although tariffs were not fully eliminated until 2010. Burundi and Rwanda joined in 2007, and the EAC established a common market in 2010, moving towards monetary union discussions in 2011.
Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe to channel.